name is Tatiana Koval, and in our podcast, usually we discuss different topics which share the idea of a human-centered approach. And our topic today is, I think, very, very important for the current situation in our business. It's a topic about feedback and feedback culture in our organization. And today we're with our guest, Kristina. Hi, Kristina.
Hi, Tatiana. Thank you for inviting me to here.
Kristina, I'm happy to discuss our topic, but before we are starting, could you please make a short introduction for our audience about you, about your professional experience, and why you decided to work with this very important topic?
Yeah. So I have built my career in people development and culture development across different startups. And I was working with the training and I was working with the feedback. And then eventually, the more I was training, the more I was investigating about this topic, the more I became curious, which eventually turned out to be like my business as I'm doing right now. Because I feel we are so focused on talking about the technicality, on how to give feedback. We talk very little on how to receive feedback, or very, very broadly, but we are not talking enough on why those conversations are so difficult. Because if I will ask people, okay, I will talk to people and say, like, okay, is it good to wash teeth in the morning and the night? We know the benefits and we do it. If I will ask about the benefits for feedback, for example, you will probably also give me the so many like positive things that are happening within the coach, within the individuals and the teams, but we're not doing nearly enough of what we wish to have. And the statistics or data is showing continuously exactly that. So I'm just curious what is happening. And also, we're digging deeper into this and bringing all this knowledge around neuroscience, anthropology, psychology, multicultural differences that affects the way we give and receive feedback. So it's less of this dysregulated experience for both parties, because both people are uncomfortable here. So I bring the science of feedback, I say, and help people to understand, so what's happening within us during those conversations, and what do we do from that knowledge as well.
Krishna, yeah, I think one of the first experts who mostly focused on feedback, which I met in my life. So my first question is for you: why do you think the feedback culture, this topic, now become more and more important?
Hmm. I think you also mentioned in the beginning about this is more than ever because we are surrounded by so much change. Everything is changing every day. I go to the companies, to different companies, and the most common thing I hear from people of the speed of change. Everything is changing around all the time. Everything is changing, and for us to become those mirror on where we are, but where we are at, what can we do differently? How can you help me grow throughout this change, or what can I do also better? Is so fundamental, so we can also keep up with the changes, even though it's so hard as well. But being those little mirrors for each other can help us or close the window of uncertainty. Am I doing the right thing, for example? Am I bringing the right value? So I think more than ever, we need to be open and communicate much more clear with each other where we are at and what we're trying to create and collectively, so we can move to the right direction.
Mhm. Personally, usually I know what the companies organize a lot of trainings about feedback, but when we met for the first time, we discussed it's not only feedback as a tool, but also feedback as a part of the culture. And I want to ask you about feedback culture in the organization. What should company do for building this culture? What is very really important, what we could say in this organization, they see what we have a feedback culture.
Yeah. So I think I might not surprise everyone that much here. The number one, when we talk about the feedback culture, healthy feedback culture, we also need to bring the psychological safety. I still hear like a bit of fear around, not the fear, but like resistance from some companies and leadership saying that psychological safety is this fluffy word. And it's not about being nice. It's actually a big about being candid, about challenging ideas, about having very open conversations, about being clear on the intentions of what kind of message I'm bringing in for what, for example. So it's really about this groundness on what we're trying to achieve here and working towards the main goal. So the psychological safety needs to be the number one to be brought in or built in the companies for any kind of highly effective culture to exist. If it's highly like this performance culture, we need psychological safety. We can look at the data for Culture recently. We can look at the Aristotle project from Google. Everything leads back to psychological safety as the foundation for us actually to communicate and to start having open conversations with each other. So I think this is the number one that we need to focus on. And then we need to look into the systems, looking into the leadership behaviors. Maybe I will surprise some people, but it's not about leaders giving more feedback, but actually leaders asking for more feedback and showing that they can accept it gracefully and show how they're learning from this feedback, show that they have areas to learn, and this is a valuable information for them to reflect upon and do something differently. So there are many different things to look at, but psychological safety, leadership behaviors, and then also what kind of processes we have, what kind of moments for feedback we have. If we have only a culture where we say we want growth, but the performance systems actually punishes it, so people will start believing in systems rather than the words. So we need to look into different angles in the feedback culture, but the safety for us to communicate, so feedback doesn't become a place for defensiveness and protection, but rather than a place for us to reflect and do something differently so we can become better as well.
Mhm. Kristina, it's very interesting what you say, what we leaders also ask for the feedback. And I want to ask you, what is the really way for giving a productive feedback? Because times to times I agree with people worry about feedback because for them it's mostly about critics. So I think it could be dangerous for them. But if we talk about the culture of feedback, firstly, I want to discuss what do you think? What is the best way for giving feedback? What really bring result so for the organization of if a particular person
Yeah.
who give this feedback and who accept this feedback. Could you share, please, your approach? I think it's very, very important.
Yeah. So I think I will go back to the beginning where I started. Many companies, they use specific models and they talk about what to say. They were using the structures. When I come to the companies and work with teams and leaders, I bring neuroscience because I think we're not bring enough information on when and how and what state we are in, even having those conversations. And sometimes they are even more important than the words we choose during the feedback conversations. So it's really important to go back to look into the brain and into neuroscience of feedback. And for example, safety makes us feel safe, logical, and then it means that we can actually engage in the conversation because I know the intentions you're coming. I know how to self-regulate. I know that the aim is actually to improve things, but also for leaders using such a word to bring this safety that, I'm sharing this piece of feedback because I know you are capable of more, just involving people into this kind of things. Another thing that I also would recommend, for example, very often people forget that the feedback conversation is two-way street. Make it as a dialogue. Really engage, like ask question for people who you're giving feedback to. Ask like how do they see it? Ask what they would like, how they would like to move forward to. So really make this as a not compliance, but rather invitation to explore this space together. Because one of the needs for our brain is sense of control. So when I have a sense of choice or sense of control, I'm also able to commit more to the things to move forward as well. And it also removes this like expectations from managers to have all the answers and all the advices moving forward. So I miss this part as well. Another thing that, for example, in the structure, those little like tips, I could just share it because I know you can go and you can use, some people still use sandwich, some people still use use SBI and different models, but I just want to bring more, a little bit depthness to it to explain it, what else is needed. For example, we talk in different structures that we need to be very specific, right? And this is one of the most common mistake I see in feedback, because people use very vague language when they're giving feedback. Be more proactive. You need to think more strategically. Improve your communication. I swear you're not. There's so many like this I see all the time. But the thing is, the brain craves like fairness and specificity. We want to ask like, where's the examples? Like, what the situation, what the objectivity? Is this fair, actually, what you're saying? So this wish to have a specific feedback comes from the need of the brain to know what you're talking about. And those words, those generic words, mean very different thing to you than me. So eventually we end up not knowing what we're talking about. I had a feedback training for one executive team, and we met after a month together, and I said like to discuss their learnings and what they applied and etc. And they said that they understood how much generic words they use communicating with one another and how unclarity it creates. So this is one of the things. So I said it would be great to look at these kind of things, even the timing, like why time matters. So first of all, the person might not remember anymore what the feedback is about. If feedback is like positive, by the way, feedback can be also positive. This is connotation we associated with feedback. Then it helps to reinforce the behaviors and the strengthen basically neuron ways to do things again and again. So it's a learning opportunity. But the timing is also very important, because if someone has a bad mood or has heightened emotion or stress, if you come with your piece of feedback, you will not be talking to the rational mind, which will help you to create solutions and solve problems, but you will be talking to their emotional brain, which will be focused on more survival and might say things they don't mean, get defensive, do wrong insights, and really not be present in the conversation. So even being mindful in the conversation on the how you feel. Are you going to be actually able to use your rational brain in the conversation, and the other person is very important. So very often I advise people just check in and remove uncertainty from feedback and say like, how are you feeling today? And by the way, and then just check in, and afterwards you can say like, I have a piece of feedback about the presentation you did. Would you like to hear it right now? Or maybe later on, you give an opportunity to choose the choice, but also you prompt the brain that the feedback is coming, and it helps the brain to receive it better and not feel it as a threat. So those little things that very, very important and set the stage. And the rest, like impact and the specificity, everything that all the basically feedback structures are about are there, but we lack the understanding how to set the stage from the conversation and what is really the minefield in a way for those conversations.
Kristina, and my next question is about, as I said, it's certain way road. It's about give a good advice for people who give feedback. I want to ask from another side, which is about from a person who accepts, because I also think what we need to develop our skills to accepting feedback, to using this feedback, for asking more questions about, for give them more and more pieces for our development for this feedback. What advice could you give to the person who want to use feedback from other person, from leaders, from colleagues, maybe from partners? What should they do?
So the first thing I would say that the more just a bit of bringing in from what standpoint I'm coming, the more I read and dig into and feedback, I feel that we kind of not even designed to have these conversations. So that's why it's super difficult. And for feedback receiver, the very first thing is to understand what is happening with you during that moment. I think we have not enough awareness of what is happening within us during those conversations. That, for example, my emotional brain and the amygdala, who perceives feedback as being a threat to my survival, basically takes resources from my rational thinking and deactivates it a little bit. So
Mhm.
when we think that we cannot think clearly during those conversations, it's because we cannot, because the resources are being taken for survival rather than rational decision making, problem solving, and all of these great things that we are expecting to have in those conversations. And the brain reacts to the conversations before we do consciously.
Mhm.
So it's a trick there. It's very difficult because we have so many things going on in our heads at that moment. So the very first thing is to understand this dynamic, understand that it's what's happening within our brains, and that actually the very first thing is to actually feel. I also invite people to feel how does stress look like in their
Mhm.
body. Do you feel your heart beating up or your palms sweating? And then afterwards take time to self-regulate. Very often people forget that the best way to move forward with feedback is just to say thank you, let me sleep on it, and I will come back with more questions later on. And you take this time to self regulate. If you feel that your heart is beating a lot, you're sweating, if you have difficulty to think clearly, this is not the moment to talk. So the moment is for you to say, thank you, let me think about it, let me sleep on it, and I will come back with more questions. I just want to gather my thoughts there. If you cannot leave the conversation, then think of the fastest success is the deep breath into your stomach, like a diaphragmatic breath, which sends a signal for your parasympathetic nervous system to your parasympathetic nervous system that you can calm down, like relax a little bit. Then even relaxing shoulders. I invite people in my training, like unclench your jaw, like oh. It's also sending some like signals to your body that you don't need to be stiff, just relax, like have a glass of water, and then have a glass of water while thinking that you're having like this mindfulness. Bring your senses back to the room, show that no, there's no lion chasing you. And even though the brain does not differentiate between real and perceived danger, show it that there is no lion. We are fine here. So having this like creating this toolbox of the things that will help you to regulate,
Mhm.
having this thought going into this in conversation and prompting yourself, saying that, you know, I will ask myself not what does it say about me, because identity is a very big trigger, and we're all afraid of the identity triggering us. But asking not what does it say about me, but what can I learn from this, can also bring curiosity in the conversation. So this is like those are like the tools that will help you to bring back your rational thinking and a little bit create the space between the stimulus, the feedback, and your response, because this is the place where you will be able to choose a different action and choose different words, because otherwise you will be just saying blindly things and going out of the conversation thinking that I thought I'm better than this or I should have not said that. So emotional regulation toolbox is a great way to at least some things to help yourself out, or awareness what is happening with us and saying like, let me think about this and come back to you later.
Mhm. Kristina, my next question is about preparation,
Mhm.
about preparation for both sides. Usually now it's very common for the organization to use one-to-one meetings
Yeah.
for the between leaders and subordinates in the organization. What could you recommend from the organization perspective? Because usually our organization prepare the how we should organize these one-to-one meetings, maybe which rituals should we use. And also aside from the leaders, because for me it's important to, from one side, to have something common for all the
Yeah.
organization, from other side to be flexible in this
Yeah.
situation. And maybe you could share ideas about preparation, also ideas what should they include based on your cases, maybe what something really work really good during these one-to-one meetings where
Mhm.
they give and accept the feedback.
Yeah. Uh, so bringing this into one-on-ones is a good idea, but also not making this like a process. First thing is just share with the team, like, okay, I want to become a better leader. I want to become for you so I can actually um, tailor my approaches, for example, or support you better. And then saying that I will be including in the converse in our feedback sessions, like in 1 hour one-on-ones, the feedback questions. And we should move away from those generic questions of, do you have any feedback? This is so wide. And I was like, this is the number one mistakes in asking for feedback, because the person cannot know what to focus on. What exactly are you curious to learn about? So I can also narrow down my scope and try looking for some examples maybe I can support my feedback with. So in the in during the one-on-ones, I would actually try to bring real questions. For example, if you have been working together on a project or delivered something together as a team, bring the questions. The person, like, I would like to hear what you liked about my support, or what you lacked from my support in regards to communication or to delivery, or how, like, so really bringing the more tailored question into the invite, but also prompting people upfront for preparation, because very often we cannot give feedback on the spot unless it's very trivial,
Mhm.
but we need space to reflect on, but then also use the chance to give feedback as well, to make it both ways.
Mhm.
Also, when you change something, show that feedback matters. If you ask for feedback, but you're not changing anything in regards to feedback, people will just stop giving you this feedback. So choose those micro actions you feel relevant. Be vocal about how did you apply and how did it help. So other people know, oh, actually, this person listens. So I can bring more of things that I feel they might try to implement and do differently. So this is the whole mechanism. I'm asking, I'm implementing, I'm vocal about this, and I create meaning behind people preparing and going through this uncomfortable conversation to giving a feedback for a leader, for example. And then, of course, like the question of safety.
Mhm.
If people are not feeling safe within the company or within the team to give feedback, you are not going to receive any. And the brain is always scan the environment and see what actions are being rewarded and
Mhm.
what being punished. So if the action of speaking up in the meeting was punished by talking them down, people will not speak up. So we also need to look in the foundations of the team and where it stands. Is it safe to speak up? What kind of signals are you sending that actually this is environment for you to be open and not punished for what you have to say? Yeah. So I think those are the things that I would be looking into. So specificity of feedback, being open why you need it, being open, being also willing to implement what is being said, and open how did you implement it. So then you can create this vulnerability a little bit, that I still have things to grow from, and also invite others to do the same, because people will see the example.
Mhm. Kristina, at the beginning, you mentioned very interesting topic from my side. It's a topic about cross-cultural communication.
Mhm.
Because I'm working in different colleagues from different countries, from more direct with more direct culture, like in the US and in some European countries. But I
Yeah.
also have a lot of experience in Asia, and here in Brazil, it's also indirect culture. So this is very different situation how to give feedback.
Yeah.
So we saw the culture that the leaders very straight and use different words for go to the goals. In other cultures, they need be more flexible, more people oriented for giving feedback, for
Yeah.
really accepting. What recommendation could you give to leaders who work in organization and the high level of diversity, or really work with highly diverse team, especially with people from different cultures and different countries?
Yeah. Mm, have a conversation about this. The very first thing is to have the conversation about this. I have facilitated a group of people, like a training for 26 people, and we have 16 different nationalities. So So it was really diverse team, and having this conversation about even using Erin Marin's book about culture map, trying to see what actually were those differences coming from, like in comparison, as long as we are not boxing people in, because we are so global and mobile right now. I saw people coming from Asia to Germany and they have changed their communication style, and their preferred style right now is directness, for example.
Mhm.
But having a shared language to talk about this and the difference identify, so where the clashes might be coming from, how do I understand your approach here, and what would be the way for me for you to give feedback, is a very important one. And then you can define like your team rituals, for example, and be aware of the differences, but opening it up and trying to have this conversation and say, like, one is, this is 6, no, this is 9. Because this is where we end up being eventually, right, with
Mhm.
different of cultures. But really having a sense like, okay, like where we're coming from and how it is affecting our understanding of what collaboration means to us. How do we build trust, for example, and what is the right way to communicate? So I'm not triggering your
Mhm.
brain, which the trigger will cost us to actually be unproductive, and then we cannot create something better together. But the conversation is the first thing to start from, and then you can make some. Depends on the size of the team as well. Some people like I once did as well, like exercise. It was a team of 10. We could actually everyone wrote a piece of paper the way they would like to receive feedback, what feels right for them.
Mhm.
So it was a good and then presented it, and we're like, okay, now I clear. Actually, yes, I see where you're coming from and why my feedback was more threatening than helpful.
Mhm. Kristina, I want to ask about also style of giving feedback. It's times to times I see with at least two styles. The first style is like consulting. So I give you feedback, I give you advice, especially if, for example, I'm your leader. What should you do for improvement? For example, if we discuss something. Another way I see what some leaders prefer the coaching style.
Mhm,
So that means they don't see what you should do, but they ask
mhm,
you questions. What could you recommend? In which situation, which style, maybe you want to add any
mhm,
other styles? In which situation and which type of styles should we use and which should be more effective, and how we could understand how to use different styles in different situations?
mhm. Like at the top of my head, I would say that I would advise for more senior to lean towards coaching, because they have the resources and they have they have internal resources that will help them to be coached through and find their ways of moving forward. Because when we coach also with the other person in mind, rather than saying them what to do, they also can find the best path for them to move forward with the resources that and knowledge that they have. And some people need guidance, so I think it's more, could be more, maybe a more junior person. So it's always very contextual how much knowledge the other person has around the specific area, and maybe you have the knowledge, and maybe you need to go and to give them guidance or support them with some. I have read a book, or I have taken a course, or I have a person who is a mentor might help you there as well. Maybe I can connect you to this approach. So I think it depends on the seniority as well, and the resources that the person has internally to move forward, to come up with ideas how to move forward. Yeah, so that would be my like 2 cents, I would say. But this is how I would approach, because I know that from my perspective, I've met junior people who are like, I just want to know what to do moving forward. And this is where they help to like understand what's the right thing to do moving forward, and then build their also confidence.
Mhm.
Yeah. And some
Uh,
leaders, seniors, they're just asking for, not even for feedback, they ask for advice.
mhm.
And sometimes we just give them like advice in a way as well. Just a bit of wordplay, but we can do that. Yeah.
Mhm. Kristina, the time is coming so fast. But I but I want to ask you the last very important questions. What three main steps, three main tips could you give to the organization and to the leaders who want to build the feedback culture in their organization, or in their teams. So it depends on. Sometimes we talk about whole organizations. Sometimes we understand what we should start from our team. What the main tips could you give to these leaders?
Have a good reflection on how do you show up. This one, I would say, like, are you a living proof of the culture you want to have? Just ask yourself this, and that would give you a good direction. Then also equip people with knowledge. What's happening with us with those conversations? Because I talk to people and they're like, what stops you from giving feedback? And many say, like, because I don't know how. I know how uncomfortable it is, but I just don't know how. And this is a skill, both parties, for giving feedback and receiving. And then look into how to create moments for feedback, so it's not becoming one one-off event during the year, or two times during the year, which becomes super threatening for brain because it's just very heavy on it. So yeah, I think I would be this, like, looking at the how integrate this into the daily routines, from onboarding to retros to meeting setup to one-on-ones. So how does it live in our everyday language? And do we have shared language to talk about this? Because it really helps for us to have a shared language to talk about this. So I think, yeah, those four things would be that I would suggest. But first thing is to reflect, are you a living proof of the culture you want to have?
Kristina, thanks a lot for this conversation. I think you shared a lot of knowledge, but I see what there are a lot of knowledge also you could add for this topic. And so my recommendation to everyone to subscribe on your LinkedIn page, where you share your ideas about feedback culture and feedback tools. And as you say, feedback as a skill for all current managers. Thanks a lot for joining our conversation here in podcast Happy at Work.
Thank you so much, Tatiana, for inviting. And don't be afraid of conversations. They are uncomfortable, but everyone is uncomfortable. So just be uncomfortable, but do it anyway, and learn as well the tools how to do it. Yeah.
Thank you, Kristina. This is podcast Happy at Work. My name is Tatiana. Always stay connected.